LA Phil, presenting Beethoven and Mendelssohn. Classics come to life in the hands of conductor Elim Chan and pianist Igor Levit. January 27th, 29th, and 30th at Walt Disney Concert Hall. Beethoven's Third Piano Concerto No. 3 will be performed by pianist Igor Levit. Former Dudamel Fellow Elim Chan leads the Los Angeles Philharmonic in Mendelssohn's Sunny Fourth Symphony, the Italian Symphony. Tickets available now at laphil.com.
I spoke with my colleague, national political correspondent Alex Burns, about the state of American democracy. So Alex, I think all of this has left a very pressing question. 1 year on, if we were to basically rerun the 2020 election, do it over again, where the votes are all the same, but all of these changes that you have just described are now in place, would we get the same result?
So this has obviously been a subject of intense debate and speculation and concern. I think there are a lot of reasons to believe that the answer is yes. Just to zoom out here, in modern American terms, this was not a super close election. He won the popular vote nationally by 7 million votes. Obviously, we choose presidents through the Electoral College, but that kind of thing still matters. He flipped 5 states that Donald Trump won in 2016 and won the Electoral College with room to spare. So you're not looking at a situation where just by tinkering with the voter eligibility rules in 1 or 2 states, suddenly Joe Biden's advantage in this race totally evaporates.
But when you zoom into a place like Georgia or a state like Arizona, where you had really tight margins in the popular vote, 11,000 votes in Georgia, and then you impose these changes to voting procedure and voting administration, and then you add the changes governing which officials would adjudicate disputes over the results of an election, I don't know that you can say that in that one state we would have had the same outcome in 2020 under this new set of regulations.
Interesting.
But again, just a reality check on the big picture here. Joe Biden didn't need Georgia to win the election.
Right.
But
There are a lot of possibilities that fall short of the election is stolen by the guy who lost that are still pretty distressing for the country. There are clearly many more opportunities now for bad actors in the political system to sow disorder and chaos and to obstruct the basic functions of election administration in a way that there were not a year ago. A Secretary of State doesn't have the power to go out and say, you know, I hereby decree that Donald Trump won and Joe Biden's 150,000 vote lead is meaningless. But a Secretary of State can do plenty to cast doubt and sow suspicion and obstruct the normal process of tallying and transmitting election results in a way that has the potential to be deeply ugly for the resolution of an election. If the test we set for ourselves is this ailment dangerous enough to literally kill American democracy, that is setting a really high bar for considering this a serious problem. I think a scenario that's awfully scary right now is, what if you had a future election where the results were actually not quite so convincing for one candidate or the other? Think back to the 2000 election in Florida between George W. Bush and Al Gore. This is a massive state decided by barely 500 votes, and with it, the presidency. If you were to have a scenario like that, where the entire outcome of an American presidential race hinged on one state, and that state happened to be one of these states that has redrawn its election administration to make it way more partisan and to make it much easier for partisan actors to intervene in the literal process of casting and counting ballots. That, to me, is an awfully scary scenario, even without any further sort of nightmare scenarios developing in the legal side of all this. Because remember, in 2000, that was a very contested election. A lot of people were very angry about the outcome, saw it as illegitimate, but the losing candidate, Al Gore, accepted the results and walked away.
This is America, and we put country before party. We will stand together behind our new president. Thank you, and good night, and God bless America.
And that was the end.
And that was the end. And now it's really hard to imagine a losing presidential candidate in a future election doing exactly what Al Gore did and walking away from a defeat that close, that gracefully. Because ultimately, this, more than anything else, is what Donald Trump did after the 2020 election. He crossed a line that no other presidential candidate in our lifetime has crossed and simply refused to accept the legitimacy of the winner's victory. Once you cross that line, a future candidate can cross it, and they'll no longer be the first one to do it.
Right.
Let me be clear. There's only one party in this country that has shown a willingness to attack and obstruct the legitimate result of a presidential election. But in a future election, now that all these rules have been changed at the state level, and now that the nature of election administration in some pretty important states has been made much more partisan, I don't think it's far-fetched